Hello and welcome to Note to File, a clinical research podcast.
A collection of interviews, candid commentary, and general nonsense for the clinical research community.
Check us out at notetofilepodcast.com.
And now, without further ado, on to the show.
Hey guys, hello. Welcome to another Note to File podcast, Sticky Notes. What is today? July 9th?
Wednesday, July 9th.
Nice. How was your 4th of July?
I was busy. Had the kids, all like the normal, like little bike parades and fireworks and sparklers and stuff. Found a lost dog, who ran away from the fireworks. So that was a little adventure. But other than that, pretty standard. What about you?
Yeah, not bad. Pretty low key, watched some fireworks and saluted America because I'm a great patriot.
Yeah, you have all your fingers still?
Yeah. I mean, surprisingly. Yeah, I didn't catch anything on fire, so big plus there.
Although I have been having this argument with my 7-year-old now about how, well, why can't you just light fireworks every day? What's stopping you? And I was like, well, technically nothing. So
that's the curse of being an adult, is that you can do that, but you probably shouldn't.
We talk a lot about consequences and choices.
Yeah, good luck with that. It only gets harder.
Good.
Very cool. I want to lead off the show. Something, Denali, you mentioned is that we do these sticky notes every week. Wait. Hold on before we go on. Oliver, what's up, Oliver? What did you name?
What did we name the dog? We didn't. There was like a lot of like doggo, puppers names. I'm sure the kids have names.
Generic,
but we didn't. That's the issue. We couldn't name it because then we would have had to keep it, and that's not in the cards.
It's a slippery slope. I remember a time when we found a dog, and of course, immediately the kids thought, "Oh, this is my dog now." And then the, owner of the dog came, and it was the end of the world. I'm like, dude, that's their dog. You can't co-opt someone else's dog. Have it. It's just not how it works.
My podcast co-host would not appreciate it. Who sits behind me when I podcast? So I don't think she would have loved it.
All right. Well, no dogs in your future.
Nah, not for a lot of reasons, but yeah.
Fair. We want to encourage you guys, go check out notetoFile.com. These sticky notes are really sort of whipped together at the last minute based off of whatever we feel like talking about.
No, deeply planned, hours and hours of formal planning, production that goes into this.
Either way, but we want to hear what you guys want to talk about, or if you want to drop any sort of topics you want to hear, or drop us a little bit of a gossip or news lead, please do. You can do so anonymously at our website. There's a contact form there. You guys know how to use the internet, so do that.
Notetofilepodcast.com. But yeah, like you said, there's the contact us. But again, how it was functioned, so you don't have to put a name or email address if there's something you don't necessarily want to be tied to. You can also put your name if you want credit. So
tell us lies. Tell us lies and watch us talk about it on the internet.
Think how many rumors we could start.
I mean,
inadvertently.
We would never.
Oh Lord.
We would never speak about things that we don't know about. That would be
absolutely not.
That doesn't happen on the internet.
No, not at all. So YouTube's just true facts, all facts.
100%. So today we don't have a ton to talk about. I think it's a little bit we'll go kind of heavy on conferences, and why is that? As you take a drink of water.
Why are we going heavy on conferences? Why are we talking about conferences?
Why are we talking about conferences?
Well, I mean, I think so. Y'all have seen Sticky Notes has a couple different iterations. There's guests we have on, talk about things. We run our mouth on this one. What we've talked about is doing something called like a decentralized concept, or really getting different voices who you don't normally see. So I think there's a lot of talking heads that we see in this space. And so I think if we can get out on the streets to conferences and other places and talk to folks who maybe aren't getting their voice out there, it helps provide more perspective to the industry and just is overall better. So hitting up conferences, there's a couple we have coming up that we'll be heading out to and seeing how that all kind of works.
Yeah, we do. We are. So we're hitting the road. Note to File is going decentralized.
DCT.
And, that's right, DCT. And so we want to talk about a couple, and especially a little bit of a I don't know what you want to call it, a little bit of a partnership in a
Yeah,
way,
I think so.
between us and Innovation Network Gathering, which you've probably heard us talk about or you've seen posted about. It's actually where we met for the first time at
Yep.
the second annual,
Hmm.
I believe, Innovation Gathering, the first one I had gone to. Um, and we got a little bit of a, they're trying to get more voices out there. It's a very small conference. It's a little bit different, organized a little bit differently, and we're having the organizers, the founders, on in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, end of the month.
Yeah, so we're kind of excited about that. Jeff and Michelle, who are just awesome people, anyways. But it's sort of a combination of like very TED-like talks on a main stage, and then everyone breaks out into these sort of, they call them dive teams that are almost like little working groups where you sort of
You deep dive.
you do a deep dive. I mean, they are well named, but essentially they're almost like you address a topic that's predetermined in the industry, um, and really you kind of go from there. Like, how do you solve that problem? And sometimes people come up with like fake companies that address that issue, or um, I don't know, what else have you seen?
There've been like white papers, just more principled ideas. Companies, I think. There's been a couple of different different like application software. Um, but it's great because you get like these small groups, and it's where you get to actually talk about these things. And like honestly, the first time I got roped in, I was like, oh man, like I hate group projects. Like this is gonna be like giving me anxiety from like PTSD from back in the day. But I
Right.
think that's what's really cool about this conference is everyone who goes is super passionate and excited about being there, about the industry, about the problems. And so it's like doing a group project with like the person who puts in 90% of the effort on every group project they've ever been on, but everyone's all together.
Yeah, and it's you're, and again, I was the same way. I heard about it, I was like, oh shit, I don't want to do that. I just want to like hang out and meet people. But it just like forces you to sort of like work with people you may not otherwise ever meet. And like we had Laura O'Donnell on, like we met her at
Mhm.
Innovation Gathering.
Last year, yeah.
Someone who works for a sponsor in site engagement, which of course that appeals to me. So you know she was in the group. Who else did we meet out there?
Denise Brunner.
Yeah, Denise Brenner is awesome.
Mhm.
And I think it's really cool the way they're thoughtful about it too. So that's really cool. But the thing is, they're looking specifically for some site voices as well. I
Yeah.
do think sites are still kind of underrepresented out there, and so we are sort of doing a little bit of partnership. We're going to be there, and we're going to be like doing podcasts and interviews this year. So I'll put this link in the comments somewhere. Um, but it's a little form to fill out about if you're interested in attending. And I will say, like, this isn't a conference where they're trying to have thousands of people there. They're pretty intentional about getting people who are, like you
They
said,
cap
like
it. Yeah.
passionate.
They cap it because they want it to be something that you can actually engage and actually make meaningful connections. I also think the format and is fascinating. I've never been to a conference like it. It is dispersed around Westchester, Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
Their downtown, which is like this very quaint, quintessential, cute Philadelphia or Pennsylvania town outside of Philadelphia, and like all of the you're across and around and in and out of the city. So it's just an interesting format across the board, which is fascinating.
Yeah. And someone asked me, the dates are October 7th through 10th. I would recommend, even if you're not at a site level, go fill out the form, submit your interest. And especially if you're at a site, like reach out. I think that there's some room for um, getting,
Support.
some support. So whether it, doesn't cost you anything, cost you something, but less than the normal registration. But just let us know if you fill it out and you're like super interested. I think it's worthwhile. I think anybody who's trying to sort of, I mean, if you really give a shit, like you want to be here. I think it's
Yeah.
where there's a lot of people who are, you know, super into it. And
Yeah.
also, guys, we do see your comments. I'll get there. I'm gonna hit up a couple of these things here. And Dan, innovationgathering.network. Thanks for the link. I think I have it somewhere in a banner, but it's in the comments now. So, um, And if you want to get actually to the direct link for the form, again, I'll post it, but you just add note to file interest form with some nice hyphens in there. Cool. And again, they'll be on in a couple of weeks and tell you all about it. So I don't want to do their job for them, you know. Anything else about innovation gathering?
No, just recommend it highly.
Yeah. So
but we'll talk about more. We'll talk about more. This is a teaser for when we have Jeff and Michelle in a couple of weeks.
Exactly. So we're doing that. We'll be out there October 7th through 10th. Also, and you can talk more about this, but
well, I can kind of talk more about this, but you can also talk more about this because you've actually been to this and I never have. So we're going to be doing something very similar at the Veeva Summit in September. So September 2nd to the 4th in Boston. And for those of you who are, I'm not, like I said, I've actually not been, but I'm super excited to attend. There's going to be about 2,500 sponsors or so there. And what I would love to see and what we would love to see and what we're going to be focusing on while we're there as Note to File is how do we bring sites to this conference and get site attendance up? And the focus really being is how do we connect sites to the sponsors that are there? So there's a ton of sponsors who are going to be there from a leadership level. And what we'd love to do is bring sites in to have the voices heard and sort of start and formulate that conversation, those suggestions to really bring those folks together. So I think last year it really has not been a site focused conference to start. But last year I think was the first year where sites came, and Brad, you went to that. How was it? What was it like? I mean,
I did. It was, yeah. So it was cool. I do think, and I do sort of like, give Veeva some props, not just because you work there now. But they, I mean, I think they set up a situation where like sites can interact directly with sponsors, which I think is sometimes challenging to do in your day-to-day. At least I find it challenging to do in my day-to-day, which is sad and ironic in many ways. But they had some panels that were site focused, and then essentially set up some networking specifically for sites for sponsors to come talk. So it's not like super guided, which is nice. You can kind of do it at your own leisure or convenience, so to speak. And but it's just getting, I mean, so much of it's just getting to get people together in the same room.
Yeah.
Right?
And this year they're built. Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, this year they're building up like a site zone. So they have zones for all of their different sort of focus areas, and they're actually spinning up a site zone this year. So it's going to be focused on the site experience and giving that sort of a home. But really, I think there's going to be a couple of those opportunities to network between sites and sponsors and start those conversations.
If you're a site and you leave the site zone, you have to wear a collar and you'll get shocked. So
that was just for you, Brad. That was just for you. That's just you.
And the kicker is it's free, right? If you're a site,
yeah.
It doesn't cost you anything.
Absolutely, there's no cost. You have to get to Boston, but there's no cost to attend. Just register, and again, it's hopefully going to be a great opportunity to connect with leadership folks at the sponsor level. So being able to have this conversation. So the sooner you register as well, you're just going to sort of focus on how do we curate the experience to connect you with who you want to connect with as well. So register early, be able to form those connections with sponsors the specific sponsors you want to talk to.
Blah, blah. And we'll be
at your face. You love it.
That's the most exciting part, is that we will be there doing cool Note to File stuff. So,
yep.
Come for that. Stay for Veeva, I guess, if you feel like it.
Wash your face.
Cool. All right. So check that out. We'll put the link for that on somewhere eventually, maybe, if we get around to it. And then last, we have opened up registration for SOS, which is March 6th and 7th. And I know you guys will be disappointed that it's not in, Kansas or Oklahoma or anywhere cool like that. But it will be in San Diego this year, and actually a really nice venue. Again, I know everyone loved coming to Oklahoma and all the cool stuff there is to do there, but going to San Diego, early bird tickets are out. Honestly, I should know this. I don't know how long they'll last, but I mean, prices will go up
through the end of September, but sure.
Okay, cool. I just can't read, apparently. But you're going to be hearing a lot more about that because, that's what we do on LinkedIn, is talk about that stuff. So I'd recommend going, registering before the prices go up, because it'll be $6,000 at the end of September.
Brad's going to send you his Venmo. $6,000.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So
So I think I know it's interesting. So I'm thinking about all of these conferences that we've talked about, and they're a little bit different than some of the other ones that we all go to, we all love and adore. But I think these are all slightly different as far as how they're approaching conferences. Like it's really focused on like conversation and connection and like actually serving like let's elevate the site voice. Let's actually bring these folks to the table and not just talk about them and say we're site centric with no sites in earshot.
yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's, yes. I mean, it's nice to see a little bit of a focus on that. And, we'll see how it goes. Everyone starts with the best intentions. I think, if you look at some of the conferences that were, presumably made for sites become less site focused, so to speak. So hopefully, we see those maintained. Innovation gathering is a little different. It's not necessarily site focused. It's more broad industry. But it's honestly surprising how many of the topics are like focused on sites, and so many of the talks are too. So yeah, I think it's great. Let me hit up some of these comments really quick. I think when we were talking about what people want to hear about. So first of all, I will be launching my political pundit career off of Notifile very shortly. So bear with me.
I can just, yep, we're gonna get up DC and hit the White House.
Now I'm going to start one of those like online right-wing grifter personas and bilk everyone of their money.
Good.
So just hold tight.
Links
What's
to
up, Damien? What's up, Damien? What belt are you, Damien? And I want to hear what your belt jiu-jitsu is. Thoughts on layoffs in pharma, how to suggest navigating through it. I mean, I was just looking where I was scouring Reddit so I can rip off someone else's content for things to talk about earlier and saw like more Fortrea layoffs. I mean, well, my thoughts on it, it sucks. I mean, I don't know. I'm not that smart to know, like, is this stuff really necessary, or is it a little bit of cover for some of these CROs with a little bit of downturn? How to navigate through it. I do jujitsu. I don't know. I mean, I'm in sort of a unique position where I like haven't had a real job in 8 years because, I started my own company. I think that's probably, maybe bring somebody on to talk about that, because it's so prevalent right now.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, it's tough. It's tough in the best of times, and now is not that for this industry, given all of the changes that are happening. And so I think it would be, I think we should have someone on, someone who has experience in some of that. But I think, I don't know. I think just like, I think I'm going to say this, but not in the way I think it's going to come off. I think networking is huge, but I don't necessarily mean for like networking to find connections to get a new job. I think I'm a big proponent of networking from like the social support aspect of it. I think understanding that like there is a network out there who is going through similar things, I think that is going to be the strongest network to get advice, right? It's people who are going through it and band together and share information. I think that's more powerful necessarily, like not necessarily saying like, oh, network to find a connection to get you an in, but like building the community with people who are going through it, I think is, I don't know, I'm a big fan of like social mental health.
Fair. Dig it. Someone's giving a recommendation in Westchester. Thank you, Jennifer. Highly recommend eating limoncello Westchester. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that, but maybe
put it on the list.
Put it on the list. Get Jeff and Michelle to add it to the list.
The lunch list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very cool. Somebody's excited. We're in San Diego since they're in California. So thank you, LinkedIn user.
Speaking of SOS, and I'll get on this, speaking of like locations, I think that's a really hard thing. Like a lot of these conferences we talked about, Boston, Westchester, San Diego, great locations, and like registration can be free or early bird rates or, discounted, which is awesome. But there is this whole concept of like, you have to travel out to get there. And that's not necessarily a low lift, especially for sites or academics right now who have like travel freezes and all of that. Are you guys doing the regional meetups still? Is that something you guys are still focusing on?
Yeah, for sure. And we'll see some more about that, obviously, in between now and March of next year. You put me on the spot because I don't know the dates, but we're putting in the process of putting some together. So yeah, keep an eye out. I'll make sure they get.
I think that's one of the coolest things that the SOS group has done, is because it is hard. Like, let's get you closer to where home is to have those conversations.
Well, yeah, and especially when you think about the target audience being sites where, again, to your point, like any conference is going to immediately eliminate like 90% of people who work at sites, probably.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this stuff's not cheap. I sent some people over to Magi a few months back, and I was like, shit, dude, it's not inexpensive to, send coordinators and have to pay for fees and stuff like that. So,
well, that's where I struggle with some of the other ones. So the people who go are ones who want ROI from it. There's going to be vendors and folks who are selling shit. And so then you go and you can pay, but like it's thousands of dollars for registration, let alone travel and all of that. Like it gets silly. So it turns into just vendors talking to vendors, which doesn't seem super impactful.
Yeah, I'm sure it makes for some fun talks though, And then I think the last thing, I want to talk about is, we covered the whole Circuit Clinical Lightship merger at the time. And then we saw an announcement. I don't have it pulled up, unfortunately, to read the thing. Maybe I can do that while I'm talking. But it looks like they terminated their agreement or their merger. Was that a shock to you?
Well, there were some interesting things about it that I think, you posted about it and like reading through some of the comments, I think folks hit on some things that I think generally folks had questions about, like having two co-CEOs as one, right? Would be challenging, or like why something like this would terminate. I think it's interesting, and there could be potential lots of reasons involved, I think. Yeah. When you go into it here, but
and so this was just announced. What is that? Yesterday. So they announced they mutually decided to terminate previously announced merger agreement. We deeply value the relationship we've built. So I think the true merger was the friends they made along the way. And then, Circuit's committed to driving value for shareholders, which is obviously the mission and vision of every great leader. Blah, blah, blah. Our paths will diverge. We have great respect for them. So, again, can anything really be extrapolated from this? Aside from like Lightship apparently is the one announcing it. Does that maybe give you any hint as to?
I honestly have no idea. I think I also saw something that like Circuit mentioned something as well, but I think the major one I saw I did mention something, but I saw this is the first one that hit for sure. And it's interesting because I think there's two situations. So I've been privy to some M&A processes throughout my life in different facets. And I think I've seen them fail for a couple of reasons. One is that something that was attested to is not accurate, right? So like something from a pipelines or financials or infrastructure or whatever that was presented in due diligence doesn't match, right? When like for whatever reason that comes up. The other one that I've seen, and I'll leave company names out of this, but where personalities just didn't match, and where you have folks who are like at the edge of an agreement and then egos get in the way.
Yeah. I like to imagine the two co-CEOs arm wrestling.
That's actually how these are aligned. That's how, didn't you know? That's when you do M&A, that's what you have to do.
You have to arm wrestle for it.
Yeah.
And then neither of them could win. They were stuck perpetually in the middle until they had to call the merger off.
I feel like there's a really good AI image generator that could come up with this.
It's true. And frankly, that's how business should be done, right? There's no two ways about it. Either way, it's interesting.
Physical strength. That's how we decide business.
Exactly. Either way, it's interesting. Again, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend like I have any insight, like in any way. But what this means for the industry or for either of these companies is, unclear. Other than they're good friends now, or enemies, one or the other. Also, hey, shout out Rashani. Nobody ever watches this on YouTube, so you're an outlier. So thank you for your service. I don't know. That pretty much does it, right? Anything else exciting you want to talk about?
No, not really.
Same. I wrote like a very short article for Paul Ibsen's Substack last last
Yeah,
week,
right.
I think. I think that's pretty cool. Go check it out. Maybe I'll link that too if I'm not too lazy later. I made a post about it. I think it's cool. I mean, more people just writing about the space in general, and not writing marketing material.
Paid for
And not
publications.
right, or just making announcements into the void, which is what a lot of LinkedIn can be. So I mean, go check that out. I think again a worthy read. Other than that, what do we got next week?
We have the brilliant and beautiful Miss Laura Hilty coming on from HealthX
Laura Hilty,
Ventures.
who can probably guess her position on the role of VC in clinical research, but who knows? We'll really drill down and figure out how she feels about it.
You know what happens when you assume, Brad?
It's true. And I've made no bones about making an ass out of myself, so it's okay.
You've made a career out of it, right?
I mean, it seems to be working for me somehow, so I'll take it. Cool. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. And again, go to notefilepodcast.com. Check out our contact form. We have a newsletter. Honestly, we haven't utilized it. Maybe we should. Maybe we should do things like
I don't know.
legit.
Maybe. It seems like a big commitment, but we can think about it.
I think there's like 40 people on there, so maybe we'll let's send them all
some
$1,000
super
each.
secret, something super they get some swag, something silly.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe some Easter eggs for those newsletter subscribers. Anyways, tell us what you think. Tell us what you want to hear about. Tell us lies. Whatever you want to do. That's what I would do. Cool. All right, guys. We'll be back next week. You guys take it easy.